are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much. I am Michael Storm, and this is Toward Anarchy. It is May 10th, man. It's a beautiful Sunday. It's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, and prospective mothers and former mothers, and just everybody feeling the love today. I don't know, it's a beautiful day. I hope it's as beautiful a day in your world as it is in mine. It's nice and sunny. I have the world in, opened up the windows and letting the sunlight in. It just feels great. I don't know. It's one of those beautiful days. It's great to be alive. Those are every day. But I set a high standard when I say, I hope that your world is as beautiful and as happy as mine. I set a high standard. So if it's not, don't take that. It's something it's a challenge to work for, not something to fear. Go to towardanarchy.com, and as always, you'll be able to follow along. I appreciate you taking the time to hang out and listen for a couple hours. Got an amazing show for you today, and you can figure out exactly what all that is, and you can contact the show. And you have to make sure to like and share and follow and subscribe and do all those things, regardless of where you're hearing me from. If you're listening live, if you're listening over the network. If you're listening on iTunes or even YouTube later on, wherever it is, make sure to do that. Hit those follows and the likes and the shares and whichever word it is to this. It's funny because I was thinking about the email list. It's right up there on the front page of towardanarchy.com, and I see people signing up for it, and I haven't started using it yet, and it just occurs to me that it's kind of the email list. I know people still use them, but they're almost sort of antiquated in that sense, because everybody's on social media, and it's just so easy to follow along with the people and things that you're interested in just by going and clicking that like, that share, that follow, that subscribe button. So you have to do that. Definitely have to do that and share this stuff, because that's the only way this thing works, right? That's the whole point of this. It's really weird to me. It happens all the time on the social media, and people complaining about it. And I got to tell you, man, it's just another tool. You have to learn how to use it, and you have to learn how to make it work for you. And if you do, it works out really nicely. And obviously there are millions of people who do, because there are people who become famous for doing nothing other than putting something up on the social media. So people are paying attention to it. It's there. It's a useful tool. The trick is figuring out how to utilize it for yourself, and how to not make it just. It's so incipient, It turns out that way. I think a lot of that has to do with it. It's still new to a lot of people. It's not necessarily new to all of us computer geeks that have been doing this stuff for a long time, but it's relatively new in the scope of things, and people are still learning to sort of handle themselves on it. And it's an interesting study in watching some people get worse. It's again another tool. You should use it to improve and to increase your ability to communicate, and the number of people that you can communicate with at any one time. And it's fun, funny, sad sometimes, watching people completely fumble and fail with it, people who shouldn't at all. So make sure to do it, because that's how it works. Like, shares, follows, subscribes. towardanarchy.com. It's May 10th, and my guest today will be Joi Flores, and it's a great conversation that we have planned out for you. We're going to talk about his app. He's a startup. He's trying to start a company, but he's got a bigger picture, as a lot of the new startups do, and the way a lot of them sort of shop their ideas to people is by telling the story and by creating creating a social movement around it almost. And so it was interesting. We've been social media friends here for just a few days, and he contacted me and told me about what he was doing, and he's like, hey, anarchist friends, agorist friends, we're trying to decentralize the food supply chain. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I don't know what I can necessarily do to help you out, but I know what I absolutely can do to help you out, and that's give you a voice and give you a place to come and talk about what it is, what the app is, and what it means to decentralize the food supply chain, what it means to connect buyers and sellers of people like ourselves, but businesses as well, directly to people who are growing food, people who are distributing food, and sort of eliminating middlemen, and it's all about the decentralization. That's a key word, and we'll talk all about that. Joi will be coming up here in just about 24 minutes or so. He'll be joining us. He's excited about it. I know I am. I know a lot of people are looking forward to this particular conversation. Michael Snyder shows us 18 signs that say we are in for a record-breaking economic implosion. We'll look at some of those here in a minute. Yes, Dr. Fauci and American tax dollars were testing coronavirus on bats and move on. As usual, there's this ridiculous idea that what it happened to me this week. I said something. Okay, so over last weekend, like last Friday, not the most recent Friday, not 3 days ago, not the 8th, but the 1st, the CDC on their website, and they have provisional numbers that they're keeping track of for COVID-19, the coronavirus. And it's all the numbers that they're able to put together. And one that they've been kicking around before this happened, it's funny because it's changed since then, so they've tried to change their argument a little bit, the people who are arguing against what I'm telling you here. And the numbers had changed, so they changed their argument to make it fit with their argument. It's kind of funny. But the mainstream media, the president, everybody's running around at the end of last week, throwing around that about 67,000 deaths in America, total deaths in America from COVID-19. And last Friday, they have that number. The CDC it's provisional. And look, and this is what makes me have to even bring this up, because I'm always honest about this stuff. I'm putting the information out there for people to judge for themselves when it's other people's information. Here's what they said. Here's what they're saying now, but they weren't talking about it. So I'm saying, look, they're saying this was this crazy number, 67,000. Then they cut it down to 37,000. So they almost halved the number of deaths that were directly related. And it's funny because I say, the government says this number, and then they update. I come out and I say the government says they updated it to this number, and people got mad at me. They got mad at me, telling me that I was wrong. Oh, you're so full of it. Well, this is the number here, and they're showing a different number in a different place, and then they're saying, oh, well, that says that it's provisional death count based on death certificate data and received blah, 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 blah. I said, I know. You're telling me, I'm the one that's been sitting here for more than a month now, 2 months now, talking about this thing and telling you that the numbers are BS. You're telling me? Give me a break. And it's always the same thing. It's the people who want to jump into the conversation after hearing only part of the conversation, whether it's on the social media or whether it's in the bar, the local pub. Somebody hearing half a conversation, hearing half a thought, and just has to jump in and throw in their 2 cents and tell you that you're wrong and say, whoa, wait a minute. Now back up a second. I didn't make any claim here. I'm just sharing specific data. Oh, where's the link? Well, it's right here. Chirp, chirp, chirp. That's the sound of crickets, silence. That's what happens after you do that. Or then it starts in, well, they use the word provisional. I know. Who are you talking to? I just really, it's just funny sometimes. I finally got there was something that happened. I don't know what happened. This is one of these things, technical issue. And it took me a minute to get the archive up from last week's show, but it's up there. And as always, towardanarchy.com, just click in the archive. May 3rd was last week's show. It was an amazing show. And so I was chomping at the bit to try to figure out exactly what happened. But thanks to producer Ken working his magic and me doing what I do every week, it is up there. I did get it up there, and it is across all the platforms. I looked on iTunes earlier; it was up there, and that was my conversation with Ramsey Dennison last week. That was it's just a great conversation, and he just has some amazing work that he's doing and done. Watch that movie, What Happened in Vegas, and watch Money Machine when it comes out. I'll have him back on the show, and we'll have another conversation about it. Everything, it just. Oh, gosh, I was so happy. I was just so happy. It's one of those things like it's really hard to concentrate on other stuff while that was looming over my head. It's undone. It's undone. May 10th is what you're looking for today. That's what day it is in my world. Otherwise, click in the archive, and you will see that Joi Flores is my guest for today for a conversation about decentralizing the food supply chain. And we'll talk specifically about his app, Latienda, which I assume is literally the store that connects buyers and sellers with food. And he's calling us from Ecuador. Is that right? Is it what we were talking about earlier? He's a long ways away, and yet still in the same time zone. It's 1:12 in his time zone. He's just further that way. Michael Snyder shows us 18 signs that say we're in for record-breaking economic implosion. Of course, that link is up there, along with all the information for Joi Flores and the Latienda app that we'll be talking about later. I just want to hit on some of these to talk about, because I have, I hit on these things a little bit here and there and talk about some of these things. And it's a very stressful time. It's kind of scary, but it's weird because it's a numbers game, and there are so many factors involved, and it's such a slow burn. I've used that term a couple times. It's such a slow burn that we're experiencing. Like with the COVID thing in particular, it's a very good example. Remember how weeks ago I talked about how I thought that there was a possibility that the toilet paper thing was a way to cause a slow panic, because it's not a big thing. It's not food. It's not meat like we're experiencing now, because there's a broken food supply chain. Gee, me having a timely topic on the show. It was bound to happen. With breaks in the food supply chain right now, they're talking about food shortages. In fact, I was at the Wendy's, one of the Wendy's, there's several of them here in town. I was at a Wendy's not too far from my home here just the other day, and they had a sign on that they couldn't sell certain burgers or something like that because they were concerned about running out of meat. And that's what we're kind of facing right now. We have this slow burn thing that's going on right now, where until things go back to normal, and what's happening is they're telling us, well, we don't know when they're going back to normal. It's not going back to normal. People are taking advantage of it. People are acting like it's normal. In fact, I was out last night, and on Topeka Boulevard, I'm in Topeka, Kansas. On Topeka Boulevard, the main drag that runs through downtown and runs a north-south route through a good portion of the city, it's a drag, and people will do a cruise, and there's basically a cruise night every weekend, if not multiple days. Okay, we'll figure that out in the break. We'll figure it out. I've got him. He's sitting there waiting. Maybe I can send a invite to you or something like that over there from him directly, something like that. I was out on the strip last night. One of the things that my wife and my family and I like to do is just cruise. We just like to drive, go for different places, not necessarily in the city. It was much more fun in the city, when we lived in Denver and when we were in Colorado, because you could drive sort of Colfax, sort of longest strip of its type in the world, commercial strip of its type in the world. But we do the same thing here. We'll drive out to the country, or we'll drive through the city, or drive through town, just see what's going on. And we've been doing that quite a bit lately, just to see the change. And we're technically still under lockdown here in Kansas. They have a plan. The governor has a plan, and the county has a plan, and everybody has a plan, and they're slowly but surely moving things back toward opening. But they keep telling us that they're not going to open because they keep testing more people, and they're basing it, well, we're not going to open up. We're not going to step into phase 2. That's what's happening here. We're not going to step into phase 2 of the plan to get people back to work until the numbers go down. But they keep testing more people. They're testing more people, so the numbers are going to continue to go up, and we can talk about what kind of tests they're using. We've had these conversations over the weeks over this whole thing. There's all sorts of questions about what they're doing and the numbers that they're keeping from beginning to end. So the whole thing is just screwball. And the fact that we're still under lockdown has a lot of people upset. But a lot of people at this point don't care anymore. And I don't know what it's like in the sort of bigger cities where there's a different mentality and there's a whole lot more people, and it's really a little bit more scary, realistically, when you think about it. I mean, I don't like big cities as far as that goes. Millions of people may live on the Front Range in Denver where I grew up, but they're all spread out. They're not all in one place and all on one island. So that's pretty scary. So I don't know what it's like here versus there. But last night I'm out on the strip and there were hundreds of people. They do this all the time, but it was nothing like it was last night. There were every lot along this particular stretch where they do this. The biggest spot where there's the enough empty space to park a bunch of cars and for people to sit and watch them go by. Everybody with their hot rod, their Model A's, their Model T's, and there was a matching set of a Challenger and Charger. I'm not sure what years, 70s. It just beautiful, and they were racing up and down the streets, and there was no sign of any cops anywhere, and it was just great. So as far as that goes, we're sort of back to normal, but that's in the face of our governor and our mayor, both of these women telling us, "Oh, we're not going to continue to open places." It was funny. Very first day things were opened back up. Every restaurant, bar, every bar that could be open, every bar that sells liquor and food was open, and they were packed to the gills. It was hilarious, and they have been since. And it's funny because my neighbor Mark, he's a great guy, and he's single, so he spends a bit of his time out hanging out at the club and drinking beers and hanging out with his buddies and watching sporting events and just being a single guy. And the same thing happened with him too, because he hadn't been out to the club. He hadn't been out, and I noticed right as soon as everything it technically broke as we went into phase 1 of things going back together. I gotta do this real quick. I gotta post this over here. He was out. He was gone. I noticed the car gone. The Cadillac was gone. So we got to run into a break. Go to towardanarchy.com and look for May 10th, and that'll tell you exactly what's going on. And I'll elaborate on that when we get back here on Toward Anarchy. May 10th is what you're looking for. After we have that conversation, I will come back to the articles that I've shared there, the Michael Snyder article about the 18 signs that say we're in for record-breaking economic implosion. I'll come back and talk about a little bit about Dr. Fauci and some of the American tax dollars that are testing coronavirus bats in Wuhan, and what it all means for everything that's going on now. And I hint at it early, just to give you an idea of what's coming up. But also some things that I saw this week that we need to talk about. The Plandemic movie on YouTube. Some fun. Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Jason Alexander had an interesting conversation about Seinfeld and events and things going on with that. It's just fun watching some of these conversations that are popping up, because everybody now all of a sudden is doing the same thing that I've been doing for years, that other people have been doing for years, all the people on this network have been doing for years, having great conversations with wonderful people about topics and things that you're interested in. So that's what's coming up today. Joi Flores has joined us here in just a couple of minutes. He's already on the line, hanging out, waiting. We'll have a conversation about decentralizing the food supply chain. Right now, it's one of those, hate to use a cliche, but it's, more important than ever at the time. We'll talk about his app, Latienda, and how it connects buyers and sellers, and how these people are, how it could possibly change problems that we face today, and some of the things that we face with the economy the way it is. And we'll talk about some face mask follies, as well, as what I like to call them. It's this, it's ridiculous going around town, watching people driving with face masks on, watching them in the stores, touching their faces, touching their phones, handling the things in their purse with their gloves on after they've handled all this stuff. It's funny. It's the security theater thing, and it's weird, because to me, maybe it's really easy because I was already really close to that anyways. I've told you how I already carry a spray bottle of 90% alcohol in my car at all times, and it's always there to be able to. It's something that's come from driving all over the nation. I've driven from one side of the nation to the other, hundreds, thousands, just ridiculous numbers of miles back and forth to different places for different reasons, all my driving life, and putting together, sort of making sure you have emergency kit and things like that. Always having some baby wipes to be able to clean up with, and always having some alcohol. It's always around. But I was already one who made sure to clean off the cart when I would use it in the store. But I'm not like, I didn't even think about all the stuff on the shelf, and never really thought about that. And now it's definitely in my mind. So it was really easy for me to just make this turn off this switch in my head, turn it on, whichever, that told me, all right, well, you're going to go in the store, realize that you're going to touch some things, do this for yourself, which you do all the time anyway. Keep your hands off of the things that you're not going to buy. Don't touch stuff unnecessarily. But it's acute now, because you realize all of a sudden how often you do it, and you don't even realize it. Leaning up against counters or shelves or the checkout line, or putting your hands down on the place where people will sign their checks and stuff like that. You never realize it until now. And you're like, oh my God, you don't even think about it. Like, I'm a cigar smoker. I have my cigars. I'm always buying the cigars. I've never really thought about it. I've done the hand to mouth thing for a long time, because I smoked cigarettes for 20 years. I never really thought about it, but now it's acute. I think about it. The guy hands me the package of cigars, and he was just handling that guy's money and that guy's credit card. It's all in my head now. So now everything, I'm not insane about it, but when I'm out, I'm spraying everything down with alcohol. And it's I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's probably a little of both. And so I'm trying to moderate. I think it's good, because it's obvious that in a place like a Walmart, where there are so many people, you absolutely come in contact with something that was recently touched by somebody and potentially get something. It's always been a reality. I've always recognized that. It's just a little more acute today. I'm curious to see what that means for our world ahead. But that's a conversation for another time. Joi Flores will be my guest as soon as we get back from the break. We'll talk about decentralizing our food supply chain when we get back on Toward Anarchy. Today's date, it's May 10th. If you have to go through the archive, you will find that Joi Flores is my guest. He's joining me now. We're going to talk about decentralizing the food supply chain, and we're going to talk about his startup and his company and the app that they're trying to make, this Latienda. I assume that it means the store, literally. And it's about connecting buyers and sellers of food, regardless of where on that chain you exist, connecting everybody together and sort of taking that centralized control out of it, as everything has been the goal. Communications, money. It's the goal of the anarchist. It's the goal of the voluntarist. Anyone who wants to live a peaceful, libertarian, even Republican existence, I think, is realistically looking for ways to do this. Even those evil capitalists want to find ways to do things like this. So it's going to be a great conversation, and I'm really proud to introduce you to Joi Flores. And just thank you for taking the time, and thank you for making sure to friend me on Facebook and reach out to me. I know you're looking for people that can help and move this thing along. So that's really great. I didn't know what I could do, but I knew that I had to have a conversation with you, and that I could at least do that in front of my friends here across the world, and give you that chance to tell us exactly what it's about. Because you start talking words like decentralize, and my ears poke up. Thanks, Joi, for joining me. I appreciate it.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure for me to be on your show. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. So, like I said, I was really excited. You talk about decentralizing things, talk about decentralizing the food supply chain, where, the world is very vulnerable to food, and we're experiencing it now. So it's a very timely and important topic, I think. And it was great that you had brought the idea. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you to be having this conversation.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, let me tell a little bit about myself. I'm from Ecuador, but I'm living right now in Colombia. I got stuck. I was in Mexico a month ago before the lockdown. So I'm between countries. Okay. But my brother is working on Ecuador with we are a company. I'm trying to do the same here in Colombia. So what happened? Let's talk a little bit what happened to me before we came out with this idea. I don't know if you know this, but in Ecuador we had like 25 years ago, maybe a little bit more, our own currency. It was called the sucre, and that currency went the same way that the bolivar is going, and the other currencies are going. Once we get the hyperinflation with our currency, we had to use the dollar system. So now we have working with dollars in our country like more than 20 years. So that was my first, let's say, my first encounter with hyperinflation and with central banking. And it was really funny. It was just like probably 10 years old, I guess, maybe less. And after that, I remember it was like 2 or 3 years later, the fall of the 9/11, the Twin Towers and the World Trade and the building number 7. So I was getting those signals, like what is going on all around. And after that, I remember after I finished university. I was still at the university at college when I found Bitcoin. So the same history as everyone else, maybe, that I found that name, I found that software, and I didn't pay attention for the first 2 years. After 2 years later, 2 or 3 years later, when I saw the change on the price, I started to pay attention to it. I started reading more about economy, more about the politics, and all of those history and things like that, and everything was falling into place. So there is something that is really, really important for us because after I finished, I graduated, I started working for a company that took me to all part of the world. I mean, I went to Europe, I went to the United States several times, and I travel a lot in Latin America. One get to see all the lives and all of the people because you grew up on a place where certain things are done in a certain way, but then you go to another country, to another city, and you see that it's very different, and all the things that don't match with your beliefs starts to just disappear, you know. Oh, also all of that. I also smoke weed a lot, so that take all of those change out of your mind, and you break all out of your prison for well, in all of those, we all know how that works. So I was working with some friends. I was always trying to promote Bitcoin at the time when I understood. I told all of my friends, I told all of my family and things like that, but they won't get it. They didn't get it at the time, because they didn't have the information that I was storing in my head all of those years. So they didn't catch it as soon as I did. So I was with some friends chatting one day on a Twitter chat. I have a good friend of mine called Jim Davidson. He's in Twitter is called Planetary Jim, and he introduced me to a lot of people on a group, and they were at the time trying to solve a problem because they were planning to buy land in Latin America to form communities outside of the city, very, very far from the city, but closer to one of the roads. So the problem they had at the time was they didn't have any kind of technology like internet or cell phones on that part of the world. So I came up with an idea, and the idea was really simple. It was like you have, let's say, 20 neighbors on your community, and one of those neighbors had an idea that could benefit all of the whole community. What is the problem with the idea does not make it itself. So the protocol that I recommended was, to create a small device that right now it can be done very easily, with a Raspberry Pi computer connected to a Gotenna wireless transmitter. And we formed like a mesh network with software and hardware that are not compromised, and everyone gets to share news on comments and everything between the community. So if somebody wants to create something, let's say, for example, to build a bridge to go from one part of the river to the other side. So if one person has that idea, but he doesn't, or she, or they don't have the materials or the workforce to do it, it can be broadcast, the whole mission, the whole project, to all of the members of the community, and with all of the materials they need, and the people and the tools and etc. And people, when they get to see the project that they want to do, people will start to get the stuff or the materials in order to complete the whole thing and take all of those materials to the place where the bridge is going to be built. So that is exactly what 5 minutes later, when we talk about this, something clicked on my mind, and I said, this solution that I just gave to them is replicable on every city in Latin America. That how? Well, it is something part of the culture here in Latin America that I know that in the United States and Europe it was like this several years before, but in Latin America this hasn't disappeared yet. it is being they try to make this part of the culture of the Latin American people to make this part disappear, but they haven't succeeded yet. So here in Latin America, we have this small family business that everybody knows what it is, and it's the tiendas. It's a small place and a small store where you have all of the products, food, medicines, probably materials for the school, books and pens and things like that. They have almost everything you probably may need for the week or for the month in that small place. And that small place is in almost every block, in every neighborhood, in every city, and in every country in Latin America. So it's just a big infrastructure of a small, let's say, storage spaces distributed all over the place. And they don't have these people, these micro entrepreneurs, that's how they call them in Ecuador, because they don't make a lot of money. They practically they buy bread to sell bread and make a few cents out of it. And there are a lot. I mean, when I started to making the studies about how this could be worked, I realized that these kind of businesses are like the 98% of all of the companies established in Ecuador, and also probably more in Latin America. So the idea was simple, was giving these people that device. Unfortunately, that will cost a lot. And it couldn't be done that way. So, and at the moment, obviously, I was already an anarchist. For me, there is no reason for anyone to follow orders or to give orders. In fact, if we are all anarchists, but if we all got the same conclusion about anarchism, so we won't need any of this. But unfortunately, there will be people that they won't get to that conclusion. So the idea was this, I was, even with my friends, trying to convince them or to make them understand how this could be done. Then we came up with an idea to making a startup, because we need to hire people. We need to hire people with a lot of experience in development, in software development, logistics, marketing, and the financial sector, and all of those things that agriculture and more. And they don't work for Anarchy. If you say, hey, let's work on this project because of Anarchy, they will laugh. So, right. So it's better if we create a company, and the company is going to do exactly the same, but we have like we play by their rules. I mean, we have to have a register mark on the all of the paper with the IRS and all of those things, and make all of those things we need to right now.
Well,
because
that makes life a lot easier. If you get yourself straight with all the governing authorities, you can actually concentrate on doing some good. No, I really like what this is shaping up to be. It's exactly what I thought it was. You're talking about mesh networks, and you're talking about bringing small communities closer together, and you're talking about bringing small communities together, the actual community, this community here and this community there, by chaining them together with the Latienda app that you're talking about. It's a really great idea. We're getting really close to coming up on a break here, and so I don't want to necessarily start you off on another line of conversation yet. Where in stages are you? Is it really early in things right now? You're just starting. You've got the business plan out there. I was reading through that.
Yes, we have the business plan. With all of this study, and my brother is working on the development of the application, and also already offering the service, but there's a proof of concept. So what is the operation that my brother has over there? He got the contacts, like 3,000 contacts between buyers and sellers via social media. I mean, he didn't need to go to talk to someone, just sending a message and saying, do you have WhatsApp number? And he started that, and he right now have more than 3,000 contacts. And what does he do? Well, he talked with the producers on the resellers, the retailers, and they give them the products on credit. Obviously, we need those on our store space in order to, because we don't. For example, there are one producer that has potatoes. There are another producer that has tomatoes, or another one has bananas and things like that. So my brother tries to pack them on a one, let's say, one package, where you have most of the ingredients that you will probably need for a week. And it is cheaper than going to a supermarket. In a supermarket, the fruits are very, very, very expensive. That supply chain, when you go to a local farmer, and you buy $1 of oranges, he will give you 20, 30, or maybe until 50 oranges. You go to a supermarket with $1, you get 3 or 4. That's it. No more. So that is what we want to do. We want to take out the intermediaries and make the people. But obviously, it has to be more local. It will be very difficult for us if the potatoes are grown like in another continent, and then how do we get?
That'll be the next biggest hurdle. But you got to start local. We got to go into a break. I'm talking to Joi Flores. Okay. Go to towardanarchy.com. It's May 10th, and you can follow along. We'll be right back on Toward Anarchy. That page, you will see that I am speaking with Joi Flores, and we're having this wonderful conversation about decentralizing the food supply chain, and we'll continue the conversation. We'll talk about the app Latienda. What I've shared up there is a link up there for the Latienda website, and it has the business and contact information. If there's something that you want to talk to Joi about, maybe you can help him with the startup. You want to read through whatever it is, whatever you can offer. If it's something that you think that you can do, you can help them. You got an idea or something, you can reach Joi through the website. He and his brother are working on this thing, and the conversation we're having is amazing because he's half a world away in a sense, separate from a lot of the ideas that we as Americans here think we know, and yet he's telling us about how he's come to his understanding of the world in almost exactly the same way that many of us have when it comes to sort of events in our lives, counterculture, cannabis use, and sort of opening up your mind to different ideas other than the ideas that have been presented to you by authority and those who claim to be an authority, because they often are not real true authority on anything. They have no real power, and they have no real knowledge of the things that they're talking about. I think the fiasco that we've experienced around the world, but here in America, over the last few weeks with the coronavirus and the ineptitude, people keep going around saying, "Oh, well, the coronavirus." You keep seeing a headline here and there: coronavirus damage, caused the economy to collapse and caused these millions of people to have to file for unemployment, and now unemployment is this level. So, whoa, roll back there a minute, and let's correct that, because coronavirus didn't do any of that. What did that was panic by government, ineptitude by government, panic by the media, ineptitude by the media, panic by the health establishment, ineptitude by the health establishment. And what you see right there is a catastrophe in the works anytime something like that happens. It's historical, and it's, again, one of those things that it leads us directly. It leads people like me, maybe even Joi as well, to the knowledge, the information that there's a fraud, that there's a manipulation when it comes to things like the healthcare industry across the board, but also banking. I mean, come on, he's telling us the same things that we're finding out on our own. He's finding out of it. This is a worldwide thing. It doesn't matter where it is, and it'd be interesting if we had more time. This is a really short segment here before we go into the top of the hour. And see right there's the music. When we come back, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the things that influence you and bring you to be here and to talk about these things today and to be working to actually decentralize, take control away from the powers that be and put it back in the hands of people. We'll do that with Joi Flores when we get back on Toward Anarchy.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us
May 10th, go to towardanarchy.com and look for May 10th in the archive. If it's not right there, if you're not with me in real time today, and you'll see that I've been talking with Joi Flores. We're having this wonderful conversation about decentralizing the food supply chain and the startup that he and his brother are working on, and their app, Latienda, that will ultimately connect these buyers and sellers of food. And it's a long, hard road, and there's information up there. I share the link as always. There's a link to the Latienda website, and that has the business and contact information. If you think that you can help Joi out on this journey, that's what we're doing. I'm bringing him here because I want to have this great conversation. As always, that's what we do, because I'm interested in these things and I'm interested in these wonderful ideas. And I just happen to have this amazing platform across the network to be able to share with all of you. So that's what I can do to help the thing along. Coming up next week, another great conversation. Listen, Chris, Tracy. I can think of a few other names to throw out there. You guys are really going to want to tune in for this one, because this is a conversation that I wanted to have since the day this particular show started with my good friend Brian Lindsay. Brian and I have known each other since we were, 11, 12 years old, so 30-something years. Longtime friends. And he's one of the only people that I know organically, that is to say, that I grew up with, that has always sort of been a part of my life, that has independently found their road to the information of the sovereign individual, and about the straw man, and about the Wizard of Oz, and the meanings that are tied in there to our economy, and the money and the tales that were told, and what they really meant. He's one of the few people that I've ever known in my life. I'm really the only one organically, other than my best friend Dwayne, who was able to come to those things on his own and find out. So we'll have an interesting little conversation next week that you guys will get to be a part of. Until then, this thing that we're talking about today is just amazing, because it's right. It goes right to the heart of a lot of things that I love. The technology, taking advantage of things like Meshworks and being able to decentralize networks and sharing of information. I've talked about crypto domains, something that's just catching on. And then Joi comes to me here a week or so ago, and starts talking about this app and what he and his brother are doing. And I'm like, wow, I have to bring this to my friends out there in the world and let them hear about this, because it's timely. And I'm not one to really try to keep up with events like that necessarily, but I suppose if we're going to have this conversation, now's a great time to do it. And so Joy's been telling us about how he's an anarchist, and how he's come up with this idea that gee, we all live in anarchy every day, and we need to cooperate together. We need to find the tools and the resources and the brains, and we need to find a way to put these things together. You know, you talked about creating mesh networks and stuff, and so the next step to that was to get an application on a phone. These devices that everybody's already carrying, I guess. Then, right?
Yes, yes. Well, the project is something like this. We know that in order to let's say live in anarchy, we need anarchists. I mean, right now people, they don't know they are anarchists because all of the indoctrination they got since their birth and all of those things. So how do we propose to solve this problem? Because the problem right now that we're facing is ignorance. There are people that they don't know what is happening, and even worse, there are a lot of people that don't want to know what is happening. So, well, our idea is simple. Let's put on their hands something that they can use every day, and let's take advantage of that situation to give them more information about anarchism, and let's see who are the ones that are waking up or are ready to receive the information about anarchy. So it is really simple. And we have this application, Latienda, the core idea is just to deliver groceries. And that is the core idea. That is what we're doing right now with the proof of concept. But we have more things that to make this application, this platform more convenient for everyone. So you can use it not even just to buy food, but for everything. So for example, we have one of the features of the application for the end customers, for the family or the guy who wants to buy food. That is that we don't know how to prepare a lot of meals. So, for example, in my case, I always end up cooking the 4 or 5 meals that I know every day. So I repeat all of those things. So one of the features is called meal planning, where you are presented with thousands of recipes around the world: Chinese food, French food, Colombian food, etc. And you just have to put the number of your family members that are going to eat. So you choose, let's say 5 members, and then you have all of those food, all of those recipes. I want to eat this Chinese dish on Monday. I want to eat this French dish on Friday, etc., etc. And after you get your schedule, you plan all your week or month, we calculate the exact amount of all of the ingredients that you may need for that food, and in the right amount for the people. And even more, if you, for example, because we want to make this complete with all of the intelligence of the information that we already got. For example, if you want to prepare guacamole on Friday, but you send to you want your groceries on Monday, as we know that you want to prepare that on Friday, we send you the avocados hard. So when get to the Friday, that day when you're going to prepare it, they are already soft and ready to be eaten. That's one of the things. And the other is that we have this social network. This social network is called Foodstagram. It's as the name says, everyone. I know a lot of people on my Facebook feed that has always they're used to take pictures of their meals and posting on the internet. We have the same thing, so people can get likes, can get comments, get share of the food, and we can engage all of those users to use the platform more than once a day. And obviously, we have another on the end user application, the news sections, where people would we present a lot of news, but with those news, with all of those clicks and with all that metadata, we know who are the ones who are, for example, caring about the important things, the environment, the economy, the social problems that everyone has, and we present them with the proposal and suggestions on how it can be solved. So that metadata will give us where are those people that are practically screaming for anarchy, but they don't know it yet. So the thing is to make this adoption of the platform to be a big scale, a mass scale. And once we get that on everyone's phone, we're going to make an upgrade to the network. That upgrade to the network will include that small device that we were talking about to create the mesh network that is going to be inside every tienda. So they get to connect to each other and create a new internet across Latin America. What will happen? That is the problem, because we have to do everything like under the with low profile. We cannot be screaming, "Hey, we are anarchists" and things like that, because hey, who exactly? So, but when they are ready and we get to the point where they have that device, and the police, obviously the governments are going to sense what is happening, and the only thing they can do is at that point is to send their police and probably the military to take all of these devices out of their homes. Unfortunately for them, here in Latin America, all of those policemen, all of those soldiers, they came from poor families. They probably have a father, a grandfather, an uncle, and a friend that has one of these businesses. So that will be like the end. I hope where people understand, the one who enforced all of these laws, all of this system came to the realization that, hey, these politicians are telling me to destroy this tool that are giving these people the opportunity to work. And I think that we have a great opportunity there. So, and what we are going to ask for the people once we get their attention is that we already show you the problem. You know where this is a problem, and the solution, you already have it. You have been working with it all of this time. The only thing we want you to do is that for you to stop paying attention to the politicians, paying attention to all of the things. That is, we don't even need violence. We only need you to stop paying attention and live your life as a normal citizen, working, going with your family, and that's it. There's
It's one of the things that I'm really liking about this is it's clear that you have a larger vision here. There's the whole startup, and there's the app and everything, and that's that proof of concept, and I really like that because it seems like a really easy proof of concept to be able to do, because it's already an existing model. There's already things that function this way, so it's just about tweaking it and putting in the right things. And so that's really great. And then the larger picture being that, these people didn't even realize, of course, that they were looking for ways to work outside of or in spite of the system that it's corrupt, it's collapsing, it experiences things like what we're experiencing now with COVID-19.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And you, everyone is. It's just they don't have the complete picture. There are people that they know. I have, because I've been talking with a lot of regular people. I said taxi drivers, owners of these small businesses, and they kind of sense it that this is not normal. This is something that this shouldn't be that, but they don't know how is the trick made. They don't know how they are tricking them. That's
right. And here's what happens is that they're getting it from every side. I mean, you start having the conversation. You have to explain freedom. You have to explain money. You have to explain controls on wages and monopolies. It's a really long conversation to get somebody. But if you can get them at food. If you can go, hey, look, I have an easy way to get food to your table. Oh, and by the way, it also has all these features to help you control your weight and help you feed your family a particular meal, and it's all these recipes, and it has all the bells and whistles on top of it. They don't even realize that they're exercising liberty, that they're exercising that anarchy, if you will, that we live in every day, where we just control and do the things that we do in the world around us without any consideration for authority, you know?
Yeah. And one of the things that I wanted to tell you, that this is like I remember that, as I told you, when I was working with this company, I travel a lot. And normally the first person that I talked to is the taxi driver who took me from the airport to the hotel or the place. So I had like 40 minutes, like that was the normal time. How long was the ride from for those cities from the airport to the city. So I have 40 minutes of their time, and I was always like, "Hey, how are you? My name is Joi. Hey, can I tell you a story?" And I started doing, because and that I remember that the first time it was very difficult, because it took me like 40 minutes or to 1 hour to make people understand about their slavery. And once they get to understand, I mean, some of them, they see you like a bad thing. The other ones, they see they smile, because it's like they finally understand how they are being oppressed. They didn't know. And that conversation, I could make it smaller, and now I can. Like, it's easier. I mean, you as you said, you start explaining how the monetary system works, and after that, everything just falls into place. But that conversation that can be done now, like in 5 or 10 minutes. That's it. That's why we have this dream of make this conversation for everyone. And by the way, not everyone, you cannot reach everyone with the same message. So I always start with I see somebody, what some of characteristic of that particular group of people, I started with this part of the conversation. I go with this way. If I see this gentleman or this lady that I'm talking to is not part of that group, then I have to start the conversation from another way, so I can get through all of the lies and show them but that's what we want to do with Latienda. And I know that a lot of people out there could help us a lot, and thank you so much for this, because
what's some of the best ways right now that people could help you? If somebody were to reach out to you, well, who do you need to hear from the most to be able to help you take the next steps in this thing?
Well, right now we have a group of people working. They work obviously for money, because in this system we need to. It's kind of way. So as you know, the all of, if for example, let's say if I found an engineer or a logistic engineer or a marketing professional, and they are anarchists, and they see this project something worthy to work, that will be the best thing. But unfortunately, all of the people that are working on Ecuador, they don't know they are anarchists. They don't reach to that conclusion. So we need to pay them in order to have their knowledge. They bring so they can bring their knowledge into our project and start working. So our first thing is we have obviously all of the things that a company has in order to look for investors. We have the financial planning, the financial projections. We already have the shares. We have sold a few shares of the company to start with the operation, and we are looking for that. We obviously have in this time, normally, for example, in Latin America and also in the United States, I guess, if you want to invest in a company, first you have to meet the owner of the company. You have to have the trust of the people that are going to give you the money. Then after a few months of conversation, you get you shake their hands with your investors and sign all the documents. That is going to be the hard part in here. But we're trying to make it this like the new era. I mean, with smart contracts, with cryptocurrencies. We know that if somebody wants to help us, but for example, I have like, let's say I have 100 Bitcoin and I want to spend all those 100 Bitcoins on this startup, but I'm not going to give them the 100 because we are not going to use that money at the beginning. It's some parts of the beginning, then at the middle we need more, etc., etc. So we are open even to that for smart contracts and things like that. So if, for example, I will give you 1 Bitcoin every let's see month for a year. So you have 1 Bitcoin here, and we can work that way. And obviously we have to present the results. We have to show our progress so the contracts keep going. Things like that. I hope we can do it that way, because the people, unfortunately, for this lockdown, we cannot see each other.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a great time to be looking for an investor that will use digital currency. That'd be a perfect time. So, I mean, really, that's one of the big things right now is to get the investors to launch the proof of concept that ultimately realizes the bigger goals. That's a big step. You need to be in front of the Shark Tank, is what it is. You got to be able to start. But they want businesses that have already shown. They don't want proof of concept stuff. Yes. Oh, hang on. We got to go to break. We'll be right back. May 10th in the archive there, and you will see that I've been talking with Joi Flores. He has been this wonderful conversation about decentralizing our food supply chain and the startup that he and his brother are working on that prove, the smaller concept to prove the larger concept, all part of a anarchist plot to take over the world. It's just really, it's just another proof of great people, amazing people out there with good ideas, trying to find a place for them and find a place for it in the market, and to be able to do some good and to do as we always do, to just move society along, and generally without much control or pushing, move towards a better place. At least individually, we certainly do, and in our communities. And that's where it all starts. And that's one of the great things I think is really cool about the app, is the idea that it should start from the ground up, and that's one of the lovely ideas of creating a business or starting anything like this, is it really proves that raising and molding and growing of things into something greater. And so often it's done through voluntary cooperation and through the evils of capitalism. Joi, it's been real great having you. Any last thoughts before we wrap it up here on this conversation in general?
As I said, I was want to tell you that we are working on this panel, like a Shark Tank, to show our progress doing this proof of concept, and also to have something you can download the application and install it on your phone, so we can help get help from people that wants to have this be on this project. And we know that we have to make work first. We are open to any recommendations. I'm the kind of guy that if I see somebody who is working on some idea that is and that person is closer or reaching that goal, that is the same goals that we are trying to reach, I will immediately stop what I'm doing and start helping them. So if somebody out there is in that position and sees the potential or has another project, we can join forces and make this have anarchy on our lifetime. That's what we want.
That's beautiful. Towardanarchy.com, if you look for the May 10th link, you can see right there. I've shared with you the Latienda website, and that has the business information. It has the business plan laid out there, and it has contact information for Joi and his brother. Just click on that link, and if you think that you can help out, if it's something that you've got some ideas, you got some money, whatever it is that you can lay down, and like Joi just said. Maybe there's something you've got going on that you guys can partner up. Maybe somebody in the farm industry or the food industry, or say whatever it is. I know that through 6 degrees of separation, we know everybody on the planet. So we just got to reach the right person. Get
I
the bug
love
in
that
their ear.
part. I love that 6 degree of separation theory. I mean, that's what we are trying also to reach. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. It just because of the idea of knowing somebody in Hollywood. But my father, who's been a guest on the show, he actually has lived and worked in Hollywood for years, making movies and stuff. And so I have this like sort of 2 degrees of separation from almost just about anybody in Hollywood. So I'm always thinking of that. It's a neat thing how close you can be.
Yes, my friend. And well, thank you so much for your time. I hope we
you.
can have more contacts from here. I wanted to also ask you that if we found, as I said, this everyone, if we found some funding through this interview or through all of this network that you have 10% of that.
Oh no, I appreciate that, man. Hey, I would love to see the thing take off, and if that were to happen, that would be really cool. But I thank you for doing some of the hard work, because this is there's a big picture that you have there, and I think it's really a cool vision. And I wish you the best of luck. I really hope it works out for you. I hope somebody does reach out to you. Yeah,
for us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah,
and us. It's our project, and thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for having me on your show, and I hope to
anytime
talk soon.
Thank you. Absolutely. Keep contact with me and let me know what's happening with things as it's going along, and keep me informed. And I'd be glad to have you back anytime. And we can talk about other things too. We don't, obviously we have a lot in common as far as that goes, as far as some of our views of the world and the way we think about things. So yeah, I'd love to talk with you anytime, my friend.
Thank you. Bye, my friend.
Take care. We'll be right back on Toward Anarchy. Stick around.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
There, and you'll be able to dive right in and find out exactly what it is we've been talking about. You would, if it is the future, you would see right there, it'd say MP3 right here, and you would be able to download this MP3 that you're listening to on iTunes or iHeartRadio or Spotify or Spreaker or one of the myriad of places that it's available and everybody's listening. It's really, really cool. It's really fun, really neat to be able to be here, to be able to bring you these conversations. And somebody like Joi, as soon as he started talking to me about what it is that he had going on, I knew that I had to sit down and have a conversation with him, because isn't that just an amazing thing to decentralize? Haven't we figured that out by now? We've no matter what, a lot of these other conversations we might have, that the closer you get to individual control of your own life, and the more control you have over the core needs for your existence, the easier life is, right? And for everybody. So taking away that centralized control over things, the distribution of food, talking about the reality that is the world of coronavirus. Not that coronavirus should scare anybody. I think back on it, and I think back over the weeks, and I think about all these conversations that I've had about who's had it and who hasn't, and I still get these dishonest conversations from people who should know better about I don't know anybody who's actually had it. I don't know, do you know anybody that's even died of it or anything, and I just have to remind him, look, I'm 47 years old. I don't know anybody that's ever died of the flu. The flu is supposedly more prevalent than this by many of your own standards, so stop using arguments like that. But it's no wonder that people would, because the whole thing is just, it's everywhere. It's in everybody's face. Everybody's trying to rationalize and internalize and externalize and just deal with it. They're going through literally all those 5 stages of grief at this point, is the acceptance and denial, and I don't even know what they all are. They're a thing, though. Look them up. TowardAnarchy.com, May 10th, and the link is there for the Latienda website with the business and contact information. It's just great to be able to have the conversation here and to be able to question him about it. He's early on in development and starting of a company, but it has a broader mission, I guess, at the outside of it, and a lot of companies do, and that's great, because there has to be somebody out there looking out for the people and things that can't look out for themselves, and that may be a weird thing to say from somebody who's talking about anarchy. But not at all, because that's the thing. If we're all looking out for each other and looking out for our best interests at the same time, how can we ever go wrong? How can we ever be wrong? If we're always looking out for the other guy, and we're always looking out for ourselves, if we're looking out for everybody's best interests, and generally achieving on our own without forcing other people, that's the part where it seems to break down, I guess. Everybody likes that first part, right? But then it starts to fall, well, how do you do that? Well, my answer is always the voluntary action to get these things together. Otherwise, you end up with the face mask follies that I was talking about earlier in the show, and that's these people that they've been so convinced that this thing is so bad, even though I'm talking about keeping myself clean, that's just, I do that anyway. It's a little more acute, like I say now. And my resolution is that to avoid doing the things with my hands that I have to concern myself with touching my face. So, like, the cigar package, that's going to get cleaned because I'm going to put my hands right to my mouth. But the rest of it, I'm just keeping my hands off of things, and I always kind of did that already. And so instead of encouraging a smart policy of you keep your hands to yourself, minimize your contact with things that other people are constantly touching, and you should be fine. Instead of doing that, we have the panic and the nonsense, and you end up seeing these people that it's sad. I've talked about the McDonald's drive-through thing, and it's wide. I've been through all of them here, and they're all doing it. They all have the cashier taking everybody's money, everybody's payment. At least that same person's not always handling the food. Sometimes they are, but not always. Usually there's 2 windows. But they're not changing their gloves. They're not doing anything about doing it. So all those germs, they're just literally, if they're lucky, if they're not rubbing their own face, which they're doing, and adjusting their mask constantly and stuff. So it's completely defeating the purpose. All they're doing is protecting themselves from the germ. They're not protecting you, and they're really not even protecting themselves, because again, you see these same people, whether it's at the drive-thru or not, whether it's just in the store, you see them with their masks on. They're fiddling with their masks. It's not covering their face properly. It's not covering their nose at all. They're playing with their phones. I won't even use my phone when I go into the store now. I just don't do it. I'm like, I'm going to be in the store for 10 minutes. You know what I can do with 10 minutes of my life? Not look at my phone for 10 minutes. I'm already this way anyway. I'm more acutely aware of it now. I'll hear that ding now and I'll go, no, you know what? I'm not going to answer it. Whereas before I might, I double checked on it. And I know that if it's my wife or if it's something important, they're going to call. So I'm not concerned about every little ding my phone makes all the time. Everybody else is. And they're holding it with their gloves, and then they're taking it and they're putting it back in their pocket, or they're putting it back in their purse. And then it's face mask follies. That's what I call it. It's sad. It's unfortunate because with all this power, with all this money, they could do the right thing. They know that they could tell you to develop smart habits and to keep your hands to yourself, which we're supposed to know from a child, but we have to tell people over and over again. Have to tell children over and over again when you put them to get. Keep your hands to yourself. So it's a hard thing to explain that this thing is my private property too. But all of that other stuff out there too. Just don't be needlessly touching things that aren't your own. All the things that you could do with the power, the money, the influence. And what do we get? We get singing and dancing, TikTok, 10 minutes of TikTok. We get a pandemic. Let's face it, folks. If you know what I'm talking about, there's a movie going around called Plandemic, and you can watch it on YouTube, and it's fine. It's fine. But it suffers the same problems that any one of these things will suffer at any given time. They're never perfect. They can't be. It's impossible to make these things perfect. You do the best you can, but it's problematic in some of the claims that are made, and some of the things are a little bit iffy. And there's a lot of question about this Judy Mikovits and her past, and so unfortunately it muddies the waters. And so I would encourage you not to watch that. I would encourage you to just go and look at like the mainstream. I hate to say it, the mainstream information that's out there, but it's all out there. Everything that we're talking about. I shared one of the links towardanarchy.com, May 10th, under the Michael Snyder shows 18 signs. It's the yes, Dr. Fauci and American tax dollars were testing coronavirus on bats in Wuhan. That's supposed to be some kind of conspiracy. No, it's not. Newsweek.com, 4/28/20, 2:57 p.m. Fred Gutterell, I don't know. Dr. Fauci backed controversial Wuhan lab with U.S. dollars for risky coronavirus research. It's not a conspiracy. It's right there in Newsweek. The information, everything, you just got to use that critical thinking and discernment about all of the information it's all out there. You have to know where to find it, and don't muddy the message with I take the input. It's hard. It's hard to even just say that, but you have to take the input. You have to take it from everywhere, and you have to analyze it and criticize it, and that's what people have done with the pandemic thing, with that little YouTube video, and Judy Mikovits herself. After, let's put it this way, I try to pride myself on being a good judge of character and a good judge of the truth. While there is plenty of truth within pandemic, it's made problematic by this character and her actions and her machinations. Whatever it is that her goal is, the waters are muddied, and it's so hard, because what happens is, all right, so you get it. You already knew it. You watched it. You already made this assessment. You've already done your research on Judy, and you know. And so you know that she's had a spotty past, and that some of the things that she says, she's mischaracterized. There's no question about it. And so that's muddied the water. You already knew that. Good. I'm glad. That's great. That means you're paying attention. But guess what? Most people aren't. So they're not. They're seeing just the one side, whether it's their side or this side or whoever's side. I don't care. That's not the point. They're only seeing the one side, and you need to make sure that if you're seeing both sides, that you're clear about sharing that and in making sure that you're being honest about the information you share. If you're going to share the pandemic stuff, make it known that you are like anybody else, that you can question some of the things that are in there, that this is not gospel, that this is not, it's not the be all end all, that there's still more information, that there's still more research, that this thing is still ongoing. That's the biggest part of all of this. It's still it's happening. It's real time right now. You can't dismiss that fact that it's real time right now. Speaking of YouTube, I watched this Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Jason Alexander Zoom thing. That's all there is right now. Everybody's done it. There's been everything, even Shark Tank. We were talking about Shark Tank earlier. The latest episode of Shark Tank. It's one of those shows that I always watch because from day one, it's like all of those, the pawn shop shows or the locker shows where they're buying the stuff from the lockers and finding the treasures and all that. And any of these shows where you're talking about product, service, placing a valuation on something and questioning what the value is derived from, where it comes from. The Shark Tank is exactly that for me. It's the same thing. And with that show, as with all of those shows, I've always been able to call it from the beginning. I can tell you how bad the company is from the way the person is acting and talking, and I can tell you that they're about to break the bad news about the sales. I can tell you how much to the percentage, to the dollar amount every time, what they're going to get offered for their company from which person, it just every time. And so I watched the show, and they've even done it too. They had on this last episode where they did a short segment after the first segment. They did a sort of 5-minute segment of each of the main sharks talking about the shutdown, the lockdown, COVID-19, and how business people, entrepreneurs, the people that they're talking to generally might respond, talking about some of the resources and things that are available. So everybody's doing it, but I saw the one with Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Jason Alexander, and I think that was fun because Seinfeld is one of those great all-time classic television shows. If you never watched it, if you're into doing the binging thing, man, you would definitely not go wrong binging the 9 seasons of Seinfeld. I didn't watch it when it was on originally. I was too busy living my life, bars and DJs and rock concerts, but then after it was all over and it was all collected, I was able to watch it, and it's just a hilarious show, just really super, super funny. And so it was kind of neat to watch those two have a conversation about some of the things that happened on the show, some of the best episodes they're talking about. The episode where it's the contest. If you're a Seinfeld fan, you know the one that I'm talking about. But at the time, this was in 1992. 1992-ish or something like that. They're talking about sort of self-stimulation on television without ever using any of the language, as I'm attempting to do right now. They had this little contest where they all bet each other who would lose out first, and just one of the great classic sort of episodes, classic TV, classic humanity sort of weirdness, and you don't want to talk about body fluids and body functions and things that people do. Hey, I'm just like you. I prefer that my pornography be very shameful and alone, and it's just like everybody else, a very personal thing, so I can feel ashamed by myself. I still got to get Chase to come on here. I can't say he or she. We're having this conversation about being a fluid individual. So I have this individual, this person, that I still need to get onto the show to have a conversation about some of these sexual weird things and the libertarian and anarchist perspective of so these. I just think it's a great conversation to have on radio. I always loved Howard Stern when he was limited by the things that he could talk about by the rules of FCC radio versus now where he can just I always found it more fun and more creative to try and find your way to say things without using some of the words. So we'll come back and I'll tell you about what's happening next week, because next week I have a great show planned out for you on Toward Anarchy. My real short list of things to get now that I'm getting my studio space all organized. It's actually done. I think I'm going to start adding a camera and doing a camera every show now that the space is properly addressed. I haven't got all the soundproofing up all the way around yet because it has to be all cut around, or I have to work on my decorations in it. But it's a man cave kind of thing. But I'll continue to work on it. But I think I'll start adding video. Maybe the next show, maybe the next episode of the show, I'll keep adding the video and throw that up there on the YouTube. I don't know. It's just a camera looking at me sitting here doing nothing. That's all. Just me sitting here looking at my screens and having my conversation. And I always think. It's funny. Is it Airheads? Is that the movie with Adam Sandler and a couple of other big guys, Brendan Fraser? They go to the local rock station with their album. They want the guy to play it, and they're doing an interview with him. And he's talking, and he's switching out carts, and he just keeps switching. And if you don't know what a cart is, it's like an 8-track tape that they used in studios for many, many years, even in my lifetime. But he's just like constantly switching out these carts. It's ridiculous. It's overplayed, but it's true, because I have a producer, so it's not something that I have to do now. But back in the day, when I'd interview a band or something like that, they'd come in the studio, they'd be all surrounding me. I'm trying to run commercials. I'm trying to make them, keep the songs playing, or, literally at other times running multiple studios at a time and trying to run a show and talk to these guys and all at the same time. It's just kind of funny. And he's not really looking at them, and he just keeps shuffling. And even in the same cart, he never actually uses them or does anything with them. He just over and over again keeps shuffling and shuffling. So I always had to get that image of myself and talking to some of the people. And even with the video, because I'm looking at the screen, I'm not looking at the camera. Hey, that's a pro tip. Don't look at the camera, right? Don't break the fourth wall. Next week, my buddy Brian Lindsay, this is a conversation that I've wanted to have with you guys listening in for a long time. And finally, it's going to happen. Like I said, Brian is my one real organic friend to come to a lot of his knowledge about the world, the same shared knowledge that I have about the world, and develop the same view of it independently of each other, but having grown up with each other all of our own lives is really, really cool. It's like one day I'm talking about these things in the Federal Reserve, and the next day and then he goes, "You mean this?" And he drops down this big old book. And so since then, we've been having this conversation about the straw man and about the sovereign citizen. And we will do that next week as we catch up right here on Toward Anarchy. Take care.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.